There's an old saying that strangers are friends we haven't met. Going even deeper are those we become incredibly close with, becoming potential significant others and possibly future spouses. But at one point, all of them were simply just another stranger, someone we wouldn't think twice about if passing in a grocery store or parking lot. But even when we begin dating someone, and even if it's been months or years that the person has been a part of your day-to-day life, sometimes there are people who even then are capable of truly evil acts. And for Bethany Marchant, she found out in a nightmarish way that those that we sometimes view as lovers can just as quickly turn into monsters. Bethany Marchant had been dating Stefan Carr for several months. In that time, they appeared to be incredibly happy and close. They went on several vacations, met each other's friends, and bonded over similar interests. Stefan encouraged Bethany to pursue things that she wanted to in her life and supported her choices. He as well was never said to be the jealous type, and he would even be excited for Bethany to go out with her girlfriends for a night out. The picture-perfect relationship seemed almost too good to be true and had the potential of really going the distance. That was until April 26, 2019, when Bethany met with Stefan for dinner, and instead of another romantic evening together, it ended in heartbreak as Stefan admitted to cheating on Bethany several times. Bethany, obviously distraught, quickly ended their dinner and drove to Stefan's to get her things and to leave for good. Once arriving, however, Stefan locked the door and refused to let her leave because he wanted to talk to her and try to mend the relationship. Bethany, wanting no part of this, began arguing. As the yelling increased, according to Bethany, Stefan, in the midst of the arguing, threw himself down the stairs. Shocked by this, Bethany ran down to check on him and went to call his mother to alert her of the possible injury. Bethany ran down to check on him and actually was calling his mother simultaneously to alert her that Stefan had possibly injured himself. As she was doing this, suddenly Stefan grabbed Bethany by the back of her head and slammed her on the ground. Over the course of the next 3 hours, unspeakable horrors were done to Bethany. She was repeatedly punched, kicked, and strangled. In Bethany's words, he would hold me under him and choke me until I was at the brink of passing out, and then he would let me go. As the assault continued, Bethany would periodically scream for help, but nobody heard her. Again, in her words, I was shouting for anyone to help me, but nobody was coming in to stop this. During the fight, Stefan was actually captured on his own security camera, appearing to make a noose, and I feel it goes without saying about what he was intending to use it for. This was what the security camera captured. I honestly am not sure what is creepier here. The act that Stefan was preparing a noose itself, or the fact that he was going about it so calmly. Thankfully, before it could go that far, Bethany had managed to talk Stefan into taking her to the hospital. She promised him that she wouldn't say he had anything to do with it, and just lie and say that she was attacked by a stranger. Shockingly, Stefan agreed and actually took her out of the house and put her in the back of his van. They then left, but shortly after, Stefan told Bethany that he wasn't taking her to a hospital, but instead he was going to drive the van into a river and they would, in his words, go out together. Thankfully, before this happened, police lights were seen in the rearview mirrors of Stefan's van. Neighbors had heard Bethany's screams and called the police. They were able to track his van and arrest him before the nightmarish act could be carried out. After a stint in the hospital, Bethany was left with over 50 bruises and marks around her neck that stayed there for weeks. 2 years later, and Bethany, while physically having healed, still struggles with the psychological damages to this day. According to Bethany, there are little things now that can drastically change her mood in seconds. In her own words, "I can't wear a dressing gown because I am scared that the cord will get wrapped around my neck. There's also a really popular aftershave that he wore, and if I smell it, I have to leave the area immediately. Even now, knowing he is in jail, if I see a Mercedes behind me, like the one that he drove, I will start panicking and think it's him." After the attack, police discovered that Stefan had multiple cameras in his home, in almost every room, and that the entire attack was captured on those cameras. Most of the footage has never been released, and honestly, I think that's for the best. The only known footage available was the one that you are again seeing on screen right now. Thankfully, because of those cameras, Stefan had no chance to try to lie or manipulate his actions. Stefan Carr was sentenced to 11 years in prison, and while I would argue that that is far too light of a sentence, not only given the injuries that Bethany suffered, but also due to the fact that this was not the first girlfriend Stefan had physically harmed. In fact, Bethany was the fourth. And while her story was the most violent, it doesn't downplay the monstrous actions of Stefan. Bethany, while still dealing with the PTSD of the attacks, is getting her life back more and more each day, and she has even started dating again. She has gone on to say, "I will always tell myself that I am in charge of my life and my own head."
Immediately, as soon as I put the phone to my ear and he could hear it ringing, he got up and he took the phone off me and he just changed completely, and it's like evil just came through his eyes, and I was terrified.
An evil that you had never seen before.
And I had never seen this look that he had given me. I mean, from crying like a baby on the floor to being stood up in front of me, glaring at me, threatening me.
Bethany has also become a supporter of Clare's Law, which was passed back in 2014, that gives both men and women the right to know if their partner has a history of violence. Bethany Marchant is a survivor and has made the choice to not let her past control her future. And her story is a prime example that you may never truly know what a person is capable of. If you get the feeling that something with a partner or potential partner feels off, then you may want to listen to that gut feeling or small voice in your head. You never know. It could save your life.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
If there is one thing that is guaranteed about life, other than the never-ending dread that we feel every single day as we get closer and closer to death's cold embrace, it's shaving. And I have been shaving for years, and one thing that I loathe more than anything is buying razors and the replacement blades that accompany them. There are quite literally hundreds of brands, all promising to give us the closest possible shave while charging us insane prices. In fact, most people will spend over $100 a year on razor blades alone. This is where today's sponsor, Harry's, comes in, offering high-quality razors at an affordable price. From the handle of the razor that offers exceptional grip and balance, to their blades costing a fraction of the price against competitors, to their handy and lightweight travel cover to keep your blades protected on the go. But Harry's doesn't stop there. They also include their premium shaving gel that promises a smooth shave that'll leave your face and neck feeling cool and soft, thanks to their gel being infused with aloe and cucumber. And best of all of Harry's products are 100% risk-free. Not a fan of the shave or the products? Simply return them for a full refund. I personally have been actually using Harry's for several years now, and I have gotten several of my friends to start using them as well. I genuinely really like how they are both convenient and affordable, and I have never once had an issue with them. Even with me having sensitive skin, the shaving gel has done nothing but provide a very comfortable shave. So to experience what I have been enjoying for the last several years, head on over to harrys.com/cadaver to get a starter set that includes a 5-blade German-engineered razor cartridge, a weighted texture handle, shave gel, and the travel blade cover for only $3. That is a $13 value for only $3. So head on over to harrys.com/cadaver to get your starter kit and get the best shave of your life today. We live in a world where everything seems to be broadcasted 24/7. YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and numerous other platforms out there all have the ability to show the world any and everything. Sometimes this makes for limitless entertainment, ranging from funny videos on TikTok, finding a new streamer on Twitch, or watching videos from your favorite spooky boy on YouTube. There is, however, a darker side to streaming. We can see people at their lowest points, or even worse, people who do not care for the safety of others and only wish to broadcast their violence. Ezekiel Kelly is one of those such people when on September 7, 2022, he started a live stream that would grip the city of Memphis in fear. The events began around 1 a.m. when Kelly arrived at the home of Dwayne Tunstall. 3 witnesses saw the 2 men talking outside for several minutes when suddenly Kelly opened fire on Dwayne before quickly fleeing the scene. Dwayne was the first victim of Kelly's rampage, and later that day, around 5:30 p.m., Ezekiel Kelly would shock the internet. Quickly, we need to go back 2 years. In February of 2020, Kelly was actually arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with a slew of other charges. However, at the time, he was only 17. I know that varies state by state, but in his case, he was eventually only sentenced to 11 months in prison, and only serving 6 of them. But even then, Kelly was not a first-time offender and had several run-ins with law enforcement since he was 15 years old. He would often boast on his personal Facebook that he was someone to be feared and that he would not hesitate to cause violence to anyone. While his mother attempted to help him and guide him on a better path, it seemed as if Kelly was determined to not only be a criminal, but also someone that would cause as much pain and terror as possible, caring for nothing but his small reputation. The details on why Kelly even attacked Dwayne are unclear, as they were said to be childhood friends. But whatever was the cause, Kelly had just started his rampage that would turn Memphis upside down. Kelly began his Facebook live stream where he began ranting about his actions and that he was going to do even more damage. Seemingly in a blind rage, he began bragging that he couldn't and wouldn't be stopped, and to prove his point, he parked at an AutoZone automotive store, quickly got out of his car, and told his viewers to watch to see how serious he was. Kelly, apparently having something to prove, stood at the door for a second before opening the door and rapidly shooting in the building before running back to his car and taking off, live streaming the entire thing. Now, for obvious reasons, I cannot show you this video, but I can show you the parts that led up to it.
I do this shit for a pass. I'll show you this shit. This shit too easy. This shit too easy. They know I'm for real. Wagging shit. Hey, what you gonna box me in, bitch? What you gonna box? Okay then, green light, red. Mama, they can get you no faking. You hear me? This shit for real. Oh my mama, Kate, how you think I'm playing? Kate, I'm for show this shit here.
The store was left in a panic, and after the shock had settled, people realized that Rodolfo Berger was lying on the ground after being hit. Thankfully, Rodolfo would recover from his injuries, but one scary part to all of this is that it was later mentioned that a children's playground was only a few yards away from this, and that there were several children playing there when this happened. It's a blessing that Kelly didn't see this because given his violent nature, who knows what he could have done. Police were alerted and the Memphis Police Department began tweeting out the events that had just occurred. Minutes later, Kelly struck again, this time at a gas station where he opened fire as he drove past, again hitting another person, Richard Clark, who had just gotten into his car from leaving the gas station. Richard would become Kelly's second victim. The 62-year-old retired corrections officer was simply just getting back in his car from stopping to get a drink, but before he was able to leave, he was taken by the wrath of the rage-fueled Kelly. And unfortunately, Kelly was not done with his spree just yet. Shortly after, Kelly made his way through the city streets and again, seemingly out of nowhere, opened fire at random cars. And sadly, Kelly took a third victim, 38-year-old and mother of 3, Allison Parker, who succumbed to her injuries, and even more tragic was that this occurred when Allison's 20-year-old daughter was in the car with her. After the third victim was claimed, Kelly again quickly left the area, and at this point the entire city was almost on a lockdown. Memphis police were sending out updating tweets urging people to stay indoors if they could, and warning people of the type of car Kelly was driving, as well as Kelly himself, identifying him for everyone to know. Throughout the next few hours, police hunted for Kelly, and around 9 p.m., he crashed his car that he had stolen and was quickly arrested. The rampage seemed to finally be at an end, but any remorse that may have been expected from Kelly was completely absent, going as far as actually smiling after he was arrested. As this case was very recent, the updates to this story are still being made almost by the day. In fact, as I was making this video, I got an update to this story, and on October 4th, just a few days ago, Kelly pled not guilty to all 50 charges. So, unless anything changes, a trial will more than likely happen. And I somewhat wonder if Kelly is only pleading not guilty because he wants to drag this entire thing out as much as he can, putting the victims' families through even more grief. Given who he is as a person, I wouldn't be surprised that monsters like Ezekiel Kelly do not deserve to be among the public. And while I am not too worried of him being found of anything other than guilty, given that he literally recorded himself committing these crimes, I still hate that he is so arrogant that he is dragging this out for potentially years. The carnage that Ezekiel Kelly left in his path is both disturbing and tragic, taking 3 lives for seemingly no reason. He did not rob these people, and they did nothing to him. Yet, they became victims of his all the same. The age-old expression of a picture being worth 1,000 words is something that we have all heard. And thanks to the internet, many people have discovered seemingly normal pictures, but with either haunting backstories, perplexing mysteries, or something in the middle. And the photo that you are looking at right now seems almost completely normal. Famed heavyweight boxer Mike Tyson shaking hands with someone who could simply be a fan. Someone that even Mike himself gave no second thought to after the photo was taken. Unknown to Mike Tyson at the time was that he had just shaken hands with Hausner, a serial killer who by the end would take 8 lives and injure 19 people over the course of 14 months, from May of 2005 to July of 2006. I will come back to this picture later, as we aren't quite done yet with Iron Mike, but I want to give some background on the terror that Dale Hausner and his accomplice Samuel Dietman inflicted on the city of Phoenix, Arizona. It began in 2005 when Phoenix law enforcement began noticing similarities in a string of deadly shootings. They were all being done from occupants inside a car and seemingly struck at random. There appeared to be no specific type of person the gunman would target, and nobody appeared to be safe. Of the victims, one of them were 22-year-old Robin Blasnick, who had just argued with her boyfriend and was walking away before a loud pop sound echoed out, and Robin was next seen lying on the ground. Another was 44-year-old Nathaniel Hausner, who was killed when he was trying to protect his dog from being shot. From eyewitness statements, it was able to be determined that there were in fact 2 shooters when originally thought to only be one. Dale Hausner and Samuel Dietman continued their wave of terror over the rest of 2005 and into 2006. With the randomness of the attacks and no solid information to go off of, as the witnesses that were available recalled everything happening so fast that they had trouble even recollecting anything that happened. As more and more shooting occurred, the city became gripped in an even stronger fear. I actually remember this happening, and I had a friend at the time who was living in that area, and I actually still remember the conversations I had with them and them telling me just how stressed so many people were. It went even further, with some comparing those 14 months being similar to when the Son of Sam had New York in a paralyzing fear in the 70s. Luckily for police, Dale Hausner actually slipped up and told one of his friends, Ron Horton, while drunk, that he had actually been the one responsible for the string of shootings. Ron, not being too comfortable with what Dale had told him, sat on the information for a while, but everything that Dale was saying seemed to line up with information that was too accurate to ignore. Ron actually sat on this information for a few days, and then another shooting happened. And feeling guilty that he hadn't said anything yet and potentially being able to prevent that crime from happening, Ron then alerted the police, and an investigation quickly followed. Police began staking out and watching both Dale and Samuel, as well as planting recording devices in Dale's home. Police caught a huge break with this, as they recorded several conversations between Dale and Samuel, not only talking about the crimes and being responsible, but also seeming to boast about them. This is one of those wiretaps.
Phoenix and Mesa Police is now officially await the shooting death of a young Mesa woman to the serial killers. It is now bringing their total to 6. Higher than that. What about the guy shot on 27th Avenue, New York? How much did you go back? That's so much money. Just speculation, but the two may be competing with each other. Yeah, getting in under obituary. Oh my God, she looks familiar. You know, Blasnick? I think so. I know a Blasnick.
As disturbing as that is to listen to, it was fortunate for police, as soon after this, Dale, Samuel, and Dale's brother, Jeff Hausner, were all arrested, and while he wasn't charged with as many things as his brother and Samuel were, he still received 25 years in prison for his part. Dale was found guilty on 80 of the 88 charges against him and was given 6 death sentences, while Samuel was sentenced to life. In 2013, Dale Hausner committed suicide, and I do feel it's safe to say that nobody has mourned the loss of such an evil person. But now, we go back to this picture. The reason it has such a creepy aura surrounding it is because this picture was taken a few weeks before Dell's arrest. So, by this time, Dell had already killed and injured numerous people. He had a city in complete fear, and yet was still going on about his normal day-to-day life. And the creepiest of all is that nobody suspected a thing. Even Mike Tyson himself saying that he was a small guy, but a nice one.
I go do an interview. This is a sports writer, so I have my people call me up and say, you got a reporter. Meet him at the gym in Phoenix. So I meet him at the gym. I'm talking to the guy. The guy's a really small guy, but really nice guy. I'm talking to him. And so 2 days go by, 3 days go by. I'm in the gym, and the gym is surrounded with cops, like SWAT. They're surrounded. And the cop, the sergeant wanted to talk to me. So I came outside, and I was talking to the guy, and he showed me the picture of me and the guy because it was on his website. And he said, do you know this gentleman? And I said, well, sir, I don't know. When I was promoting the fight, if I must have said something to him, if I offended him, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And he said, no, he liked you, Mr. Tyson. He didn't like the 28 people that he shot and the 8 that he killed.
Home is supposed to be a safe place where you can go to unwind after a long day at work and not have to worry about the outside world. Unfortunately, it appears far too often that we read or hear about someone's house being broken into and it ending in tragedy as the homeowners meet with a horrible fate. This was the case for Krystyna and Andrew Rerak, when on February 17, 2021, their lives were cut short as that night their house erupted into flames from a violent explosion. Over 24 firefighters arrived on the scene to battle the blaze as neighbors watched on in horror as there was nothing they could do but hope that somehow the couple had managed to survive. Unfortunately, that was not the case. At first, some thought of this as a faultless accident, something that could happen to any one of us. But as the fire was being investigated, the fire marshal assigned to the case began to notice inconsistencies with the nature of the fire. As more information about the house fire was brought to light, and it became more and more apparent that this was leaning towards the fire being intentional, a neighbor of the Reraks came forward to police with footage they had recently discovered on their security camera. And it took this case from having doubts that this was accidental to it becoming a full-blown double homicide. The news broke almost overnight as several news agencies shared the shocking video to the public in hopes of any information being relayed back to law enforcement. Here is that video. Hidden in the darkness is a figure, waiting for just the right time to strike. As soon as the car pulls into the garage, the figure moves in behind them and hides behind the car. Seeing that one car was already in the driveway, I assume that whoever was driving didn't notice the person lurking just out of sight behind the passenger window. The garage doors then close as the driver of the car begins stepping out. The video then cuts to the garage exploding in fire. What I didn't notice at first was the massive time jump. When the figure is seen walking into the garage, it was 6:25 p.m. The next video cut as the garage explodes jumps nearly 12 hours as it occurs at 5:27 a.m. In that nearly 12-hour time gap, we have no idea of what transpired, nor do we know what the exact cause of the house fire or explosion was. I have seen some conflicting reports on this case from various articles that state the Reraks died in the explosion, that they died due to smoke inhalation from the fire, and that they were already dead by the time the explosion happened. I could see that last one being the most likely reason. Unless the Reriks were restrained somehow, they would have tried to escape the burning home. And given the severe nature of the explosion and fire, I would think that whoever was responsible was attempting to cover their tracks and make it look like a house fire. But that all failed when the coroner's report came out and stated that there was no smoke residue inside either Krystyna or Andrew's lungs, pointing to the fact that they were already dead by the time the fire had started. This is why I lean on the idea that the one responsible for this did this simply to cover their tracks. I honestly debate on if they even intended for an explosion to happen. For over a month, this case seemingly went cold. There were a few leads, but law enforcement was keeping very quiet about this investigation. Then, on March 29th, 2021, police announced that they had arrested 27-year-old Harrison Brown a few days prior, and had charged him with the deaths of Krystyna and Andrew. Police have been very vague about how they caught Harrison, or what led to him even being identified, but they have been adamant about him being responsible. But this whole thing is kind of weird because given the nature of this crime and the violence of it, you would think that there would be more information out there, but I couldn't even find a picture of Harrison Brown. Googling that name gives you a bunch of different people, and seemingly none of them have anything to do with this story. What is known about Harrison is that he and Andrew had some type of business relationship together, and that is all that has been said. No mention of what kind of business or what could have transpired to make Harrison want to commit such a violent crime. The reason I included this case at the end, while short, I felt it was a good warning in a sense. I'm not saying that all crime can be prevented, but there can be necessary measures one takes to at least be aware of your surroundings. And in no way am I saying that Krystyna or Andrew were in any way at fault for what happened. But I guess the point I'm trying to make and why I'm showing it to everyone is the particular footage when you see supposedly Harrison sneaking into the garage, something like that. If you are ever in a situation where it could be very dark, or you may not know your surroundings, at the very least be aware of them. Because someone who may be familiar with the area and want to use that to their advantage will. So I guess this last part, this video, was more of a warning for people and kind of a helpful tip. The fact is that there is not much known on this case. I have researched a lot on both the names Harrison Brown and Krystyna and Andrew, and you will find articles, but they're articles that can be read in about 2 minutes. And it is unfortunate that there isn't much known on this case, and that the most recent update I saw was in April of 2021, and since then nothing. What we do know, however, is that on February 17th, 2021, a very happy and loving couple had their lives taken from them for reasons that are still to this day shrouded in mystery.